County High School teacher under fire for allegedly using a racial slur inside the classroom. Tonight, parents up in arms at a town hall. The teacher said the N-word in front of his physics class.
So when I first heard about this story, the first thing I thought was, racial slurs in the classroom? Don't do that. Here on the Actual Justice Warrior, we do not, that is a do not, endorse teachers calling their students racial slurs. However, my brother, in his sometimes wisdom, and by the way, happy birthday to my brother, actually told me that I needed to watch the story in full context so I could understand what was going on, because this racial slur that triggered a student protest that went on for days, that led to demands of the teacher being fired, meetings, and all this other crazy stuff, was not what we thought. It was not as what was presented, and it's actually insane to watch students, faculty, news reporters, all these different people tell this tale as if the context doesn't totally vindicate the teacher in this scenario. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get into this, first of all, I hope you guys had a lovely Christmas. We are not sponsored. Thank you to everyone who has been signing up and joining over at actualjusticewarrior.com/join. I have other join methods linked in the description, but for those of you who jumped on board with my website, I really appreciate it. Really, my heart goes out to you. Great Christmas present to me. Thank you so very, very much. But enough of that schmaltz. Let's get into the video.
The teacher said the N-word in front of his physics class. Students say the district is trying to sweep it under the rug. Now the community is stepping in the form of a community forum.
So the report is that the teacher, that dastardly teacher, said the N-word in front of his class. How dare this teacher say the N-word to these students? And it's so hurtful, so harmful, so shameful, so bad, so evil that it hurt all of these students who had never once encountered that word.
Atlanta News First reporter Tori Cooper has been on top of this story from the start. And Tori, you said tonight the district is still not responding necessarily to what happened.
So we have Tori Cooper on the scene wearing a neon green jacket because apparently one of the previous people who worked as a reporter at this news agency actually got hit by a car during one of these broadcasts. So she decided to wear something so visible that you could legitimately see her from space. Now, she's been on this story from the jump, and apparently the district is not responding to what is at this point being portrayed as a story of a teacher calling a student, presumably a black student, the N-word. Now again, you guys are not going to believe the twist and turn in this story.
Yeah, Alan, I've been reaching out to the district since last week when students walked out in protest. Today, the superintendent did message us back saying the reason they did not comment is because their media person was out sick. But students and parents tonight say this is exactly how the district is able to sweep issues like this under the rug.
So this is where the story started to get a bit weird for me. I know it's a little bit of a red flag. I know you might not have noticed unless you're paying attention, zooming in on every detail like I am. But the fact that she said that the parents and the community said that this is the excuse they always use to afford accountability just sounded a bit off. Do they always go with their media person is out sick? Or does the school, according to the parents in the community, actually make their media person sick so that they are unavailable to comment? And if they do so, why even bother having a media person? On top of that, I don't remember my school districts growing up having a media person in order to deal with local controversies, but this is DeKalb County, which is not that far from Fulton County, which is where Atlanta is, so obviously, presumably, there are some serious problems that maybe you need a media person, and maybe they're so sketchy that you actually have to have them get sick forcibly by the school or pretend to be out sick whenever a controversy is just too controversial. But again, they're going to cut to the students, and this is where the segment and the whole story completely falls off the rails. This is where it gets incredibly stupid, incredibly unbelievable, and I think that we all need to collectively shame DeKalb County's community and students for being absolutely stupid.
It hasn't really been handled as it should have. As soon as the action happened, he wasn't disciplined, he wasn't punished.
So the first thing that I want to point out is that the teacher was in fact suspended for a day. Secondly, I know that this is a child, and I know you might think at this point that this is a very, very traumatic story, but she sounds like she's crying. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. And then we cut to the protest, and these kids are out demonstrating against this teacher because apparently you would presume at this point the teacher called the student the N-word. And again, maybe I'm giving away the game right here. Maybe I'm a little bit undercutting the premise of the story. But when you find out what actually happened, it gets quite ridiculous and quite insane. And the fact that these students are protesting and the parents of all people, shame on them, are backing them up is also another level of insanity.
Decatur High School students say they are not done protesting. Hundreds of students held a walkout last week after their physics teacher, Mr. Chestnut, was suspended from class for 1 day without pay after he said the N-word 3 times in front of students.
Okay, so Mr. Chestnut sounds really white, also sounds oddly Christmassy, even though we're past Christmas. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Maybe that's what these students had in mind as they form a mob in order to go after this teacher. But apparently, Mr. Chestnut said the N-word 3 different times, and this is newsworthy. This is worthy of a community forum. This is worthy of a student days-long walkout, days-long protest, because how dare you, Mr. Chestnut, professor of physics, say the N-word 3 different times. I can't believe that you, Mr. Chestnut, would say the N-word. Here at the Actual Justice Warrior, we do not support Mr. Chestnut saying the N-word towards one of his students.
Two students were saying that they were saying it back and forth to each other, 2 black students, and he was just like, oh, you can't say that, saying the word. And then one of the students goes, oh, wait, what did you say? Pulls out the phone, and he goes again 2 more times, you can't say that.
Do I need to play that again? I think I need to play that again so you guys can hear for a second time what all these stupid kids are protesting over, what they gather the community for, and what the local news is out there for, including neon blazer wearing woman who has been on this story since day one.
Two students were saying that they were saying it back and forth to each other, 2 black students, and he was just like, oh, you can't say that, saying the word. And then one of the students goes, oh, wait, what did you say? Pulls out the phone, and he goes again 2 more times, you can't say that.
So Mr. Chestnut was in his class, physics class, by the way, just in case you were wondering, trying to teach these students physics. And he overhears his students throwing the N-word back and forth. So Mr. Chestnut says, you can't say that. He uses the N-word. Then the students take out their phone to record him, which I'm sure is against school policy. And then they say, what did you say? Could you repeat that? And he says, you can't say the N-word in my class 2 more times. That is what they're protesting over. That is what Mr. Chestnut's job is on the line over. The fact that he told students to stop swearing in his classroom, and he repeated the swear to his students. So, by the way, these students were throwing it back and forth between each other. They're totally fine with the word, but apparently, even in this context, the utterance of this from a non-black teacher at their school is worthy of days-long protests. And because parents aren't parents anymore, they want to be friends of the kids, they take the side of the kid over the teacher. They've decided to come out as a community in support of this, even though Mr. Chestnut was suspended for only 1 day. Now, if I were in this school, if I were in DeKalb County, you know what I would have done? I would have suspended the kid that pulled out his phone for 20 days. I would have suspended the other kid that was throwing this word around for 10 days, because you can't swear in his classroom. You shouldn't be bringing out a phone in there. You caused a whole protest movement over nothing, and each and every one of these stupid kids would get a lesson on context. I think that's the major problem here. So you have this kid coming up here giving you the context, and you would think, if this kid knows the context, if anybody knew the context in this, that they would react appropriately, which would be to understand that this was not being used as a pejorative. This was just a teacher trying to gain control over the classroom. But guess what? We're in current year 2022, at least for a couple more days, and we can't have that. We can't have any logic, any reason, any sense, or anything like that. So this very serious local news segment is going to play to this child throwing a hissy fit, and we're going to hear her idiotic explanation.
Black students say they know it's hard for many people to understand why black people use the N-word among themselves.
Some people who use it, who are, reapplying it, it has a negative history, but they're using it in a positive light to build their community. I understand many people have their own relationship with this word. My thing is, this is not a white people thing.
So what this student is saying, and by the way, I know this student is a young student. I know that. I understand that. So I'm granting a little bit of grace as I'm adding this in, is that it's dependent on context. So this idiot, this stupid child who is being enabled by the adults, the local news, the other teachers, the community meeting, all of that, is talking about how the context of the word determines whether or not it's a pejorative or not, while they're going after a teacher while ignoring the context. Here's something that you need to learn, you buffoon. There is a way to talk amongst your friends, and there is a way to talk amongst a professional environment. A physics class is more similar to a professional environment to how you communicate with your friends. So when your teacher tells you not to use that word, even if your teacher uses the no word in class, the context should be considered, just like you're asking for, and that should be what you base your determinations on. There is no racism at all in this. In fact, if he heard a white student use the word, he would have likely done the same thing and said you can't use that. But this student is like, you know what? We really need to understand that within the black community, I know there's a history of the word. We use that to build each other up and all that. But all of a sudden, as soon as somebody white that ever gets mentioning the word ever, we break down, we throw a hissy fit, we have to protest. Maybe they're even going to start looting in response to this civil rights crisis because, it's all about how it's not a white people thing. White people ruin everything, and we got a little racist right here in our little high school in DeKalb County. And by the way, if you ever wondered why it's important to take control and seize the public schools, these indoctrination centers, that is a perfect example why. This person has been indoctrinated. They are not capable of critical thought. You cannot make that statement, which basically was context matters, while ignoring the context and not be the victim of indoctrination, not be an utter buffoon, and that's what we're seeing presented. And rather than being shamed publicly like I'm doing right here in this video, this girl is considered an activist. This girl is considered a hero. She's a doofus. That's what she is. She's also a racist, by the way, and that is taught to her by our public school system.
But they didn't think they would have to teach this to their teacher.
They didn't think they would have to teach it to their teacher. Listen, I know a lot of you might be a little bit more forgiving of the use in this. They're just dumb kids. They're just useless. They've been indoctrinated. Their parents are probably not good people either, but the thing is, they're kids, so let's give them a break. Well, there's no breaks given to the local news reporter. The teacher is not being taught anything valuable from these kids, except for the fact that according to our current society in K-12 education, black kids have carte blanche to do absolutely anything. And if you ever have any expectations of decorum or behavior, even if they are the bare minimum standards that you would expect from every other group of kids in the school, then that is considered racism, and they will form a mob in order to go after you, and they'll have a cry session and talk about how you really harmed them by telling them that they shouldn't essentially be swearing in the classroom. It's such a no-no word when it came out of the teacher's mouth, but here's what you don't understand. In certain contexts, it's totally fine, but not the context of him saying, stop saying that in my classroom, because how dare you, you're an evil white racist, let's pull out the phones, because a white person made some syllables, and therefore, we gotta panic, we gotta light our hair on fire, we gotta have a struggle session called the community meeting, because he was only suspended for 1 day. He shouldn't be suspended at all. The teachers union should back him in this scenario, and these kids should be named and shamed, but more importantly, everybody who enabled them, that's an adult that's acting like a child, throwing a hissy fit, should also be named and shamed. These kids were not offended. They're opportunistic. They've learned about their privilege through every aspect of our pop culture, through our K-12 indoctrination system, and this is the result of that. They're going after a guy who just wanted to gain control over the classroom. They're going after a guy who just wanted his kids to, act right in the classroom, show any level of decorum. It's because he had some standard standards that he expected from them, and they're like, no, you don't understand. You need to have no expectations for your students' behavior in the classroom.
He's a grown man. He knows what he said was wrong. He's educated enough to know what he said was wrong.
The students say there needs to be a policy in place to ensure teachers like Mr. Chestnut are held accountable.
He knows what he said was wrong. He's educated enough to know. No, you're wrong. He knows what you were saying was wrong. You're not educated enough to take direction. You've been pandered to. You've been freaking treated like you're made of glass. And it's absurd and it's insane. And also, take your headphones off. I don't need to see them around your neck when you're crying into the microphone telling us about how this teacher who said something in a classroom that you likely weren't even in, so you heard about it secondhand, hurt your feels so bad, and how we need a policy in the school now to prevent the teacher from telling the students to act right in the school.
Students say the principal apologized to the school on behalf of Mr. Chestnut, sent a letter to parents saying discrimination won't be tolerated, but they say Mr. Chestnut justified his actions instead of apologizing.
So first of all, the principal is a complete and utter coward. Saying that discrimination won't be tolerated is absurd. What is happening right now is they're tolerating discrimination. When you apologize and don't back up Mr. Chestnut, you are supporting people who say it's not okay based on the color of his skin. Even in the context of him saying, don't use that word in my classroom, it's not okay because he's a white guy and white people are evil. So you are tolerating discrimination. You are endorsing it. The principal is an absolute coward. And they say that Mr. Chestnut justified his actions rather than apologizing. Good on him. He should not apologize. He should demand respect in his classroom because he did nothing wrong. Mr. Chestnut did nothing wrong.
I got the opportunity to think about how and why that got past the filter, right? It's easy for me to wonder that growing up in this country at the time I did, starting in the past, that I have absorbed some racist nonsense that is still bumping around in my brain.
Okay, never mind. Scratch that. Mr. Chestnut, total coward as well, saying, oh, I guess growing up in America, I'm going to blame the United States of America because I got that evil white racism growing up in this country. It was in my brain. Mr. Chestnut, you know you did nothing wrong. You're a physics teacher. You're smarter than this. You're better than this. Stick up for yourself. Have some damn pride. Have some dignity. Have some self-respect. You're being bullied by children, actual literal children, and adults that are acting like children.
I do also want to point out that the chair of the school board was also here tonight, and she notified parents and students that as soon as this happened, the superintendent reached out to the entire school board to tell them about it. She also says that the school board cannot get involved in personnel matters, and that really provided some more context for parents. And she also added that she's happy that the students are remaining persistent and vocal about this.
Again, if you ever wondered why school board elections are so important, why it's so important to throw out these school board officials, is that these are the people that are indoctrinating the children. These are the people that are putting together this curriculum, teaching them to be victims, teaching them to be overly sensitive, and teaching them to be racist against white people, including their teachers.
And she also added that she's happy that the students are remaining persistent and vocal about this.
You're glad that the students are being persistent? They're disrupting classes. They're not showing up to classes based on a protest that can only be rooted in their hatred for white people and utter ignorance and cowardice for the students that know this is ridiculous but are just going along. Not to mention the opportunistic students who see this as an excuse not to show up for class. This is not a civil rights movement at all. Nothing happened here. This is a non-story. These are kids that are trying to get one over on their teacher, and rather than a pushback against them, rather than the school board, the superintendent, the principal, and the teacher having a united front with the parents, they're all taking the side of the children rather than acting like adults.
Yeah, so Tori, great reporting there.
No, Tori, that is terrible reporting. Rest assured, you're absolutely terrible. Just like anybody walking by you's vision becomes terrible after the light beaming off your neon jacket blinds them.
So now that the meeting is over, does anyone feel like progress is being made? Are we getting closer to a resolution here?
Yeah, the students say they really felt like this was the best first step to bring the community in on this, bring everyone together and talk about it peacefully. But the students also say that in order to make real change across the entire community, Administrators need to stop trying to make light of these situations and address them head on and quickly.
I hate these kids. I'm against them. Honestly, they deserve to have no teachers in the classroom, no education. They deserve to drop out of high school. They deserve to become destitute. And yes, I'm dead serious. Not a hint of sarcasm in my voice. They are bad people, each and every one of them that are participating in this. The idea that the struggle session is a good first step, and this needed to go beyond the kid actually doing what their teacher told them and acting right in the classroom is absurd. We are again allowing tantrum throwing children to run this town, run this community. It's ridiculous, it's absurd, and point to a parent that is actually taking responsibility in this situation, and I will change my mind. The teacher did nothing wrong except for apologize and talk about how, oh, America, all that racism basted my brain. That's why I actually demanded the bare minimum of respectable conduct in a classroom from black students. How could I do that? Obviously, that's evil white racism. Ridiculous, absurd. Every single person that they showed on screen, 100% of them are absurd and insane, and I can't stand it.
Now, right now, we have a recording of Mr. Chestnut's full apology to his physics class. You can listen to it for yourself under the story at AtlantaNewsFirst.com.
No, I'm not going to listen to that. I'm not going to go into that. That's going to disgust me. It's going to make me want to vomit. And honestly, we're too close to Christmas for that nonsense. But look, that's just my take. That's just my opinion. It happens to be 100% right. I happen to be on point in every regard, every bit of my commentary. But if you disagree with me, I would love to read and laugh at your wrong opinion down in the comments below. If you like the video, guess what? There's a like button. You can hit it and show me by leaving a like. If you dislike the video, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, there's also a like button. Just hit the like button if you dislike it, and I'll be able to tell the difference. Subscribe for more content. Follow me on my social media. Support me via the support links in the description box of this video. This has been me talking about insanity in DeKalb County. Till next time.